Namo Buddhaya, and welcome to the Buddha Dharma TV Sunday program. I am Lisa Chu. Today we will start with a Dharma talk, followed by a song and a Dharma Pada session. The Dharma talk today is by Venerable Dr. Chandana of the United States. Bante's insights are both enlightening and rationally sound, demanding your full attention to understand the deep profoundness of his Dharma discourse. We are grateful to the Venerable for sharing with us part 2 of the Dharma titled Spiritual Pride.
So what we're dealing with is the presence of spiritual pride. When the person doesn't have humility, the person has pride. In the case of us being, closing an eye when it comes to the importance of maintaining that need to have a specialist. That means the person is saying, no, I'm fine. It's like somebody who's bleeding. Chetva is a term that we have in Pali. It means severed or decapitated. Imagine your limbs are chopped off, severed for something happened, an injury, major injury. And you're saying, I got this. I'm just going to put some tissue on it. No, you can't stop the bleeding. You have to fix the bleeding. You have to stop it first. Otherwise, there's not going to be any blood left to circulate, to get oxygen to your brain. Your heart will stop. You will die. So what we have in the case of individuals neglecting to have this respectful position towards their position as an individual who needs help. No, I'm okay, I'm going to be fine. When I say they lack humility, what essentially we're saying is there's a tremendous amount of pride. The Buddha called it mana, the conceit. Asmi mana, I got this, I am this. The presence of a teacher who is the specialist, when we find such a person, which is becoming more and more rare, mind you, if a person comes across such a teacher, they need to hold on to dear life to this teacher, because it's like learning a new language. Everybody speaks it, or at least you don't speak it, and you go to a place where they don't speak your language. So you cannot stomp your feet and be prideful and say, well, I speak other languages, so they have to comply, they have to make room for me, they have to learn my language. No, it doesn't work like that. So the humility has to be present in you to approach it, and lowering your head is essential. Otherwise, what is pride in this case? Like I was saying with the electrician or the plumber or somebody who is a specialist, a physician, a dentist. You have a toothache, you have, cavities in your teeth, or there's a root canal or something like that. There's a pus developing, infection, inflammation somewhere in your body. You go and seek out the help of a specialist. Now, as the surgeon is making their incisions to try to pull out that tumor from your body, you don't say, well, no, I'll do it. I mean, to us, it sounds ridiculous, because we start laughing as how, of course not. We have to give way. We have to lower our head. We have to be admitting our ineffectiveness in our skills. In other words, we are dependent. This is where the pride comes in. We live in a culture, at a time period where people say, for many things, they say, sure, yeah, I have to go to school, I have to go, I have to learn. But that infantile, teenage-like way of thinking that, that thinks of itself as a, very much narcissistically, that I know everything. What I see is, despite the fact that the person might go and become an attorney, a professor, we might become a physician, this and that, when it comes to the focus and attention that needs to be given to one's own spiritual well-being, for example, I mentioned the development of virtue in oneself, the development of one's mind, the development of one's discernment. We say, no, I got this. I can do this. I mentioned a few times how one time I had a therapist, acquaintance of mine. We used to take part in different organizations, and he was a psychologist, and I was a psychotherapist, so we would exchange ideas, this and that. And one day, we were standing by the elevator, and I was going to my own office, and he was going to his office in the same building to meet clients. And suddenly, he said, mindfulness, by the way, it's like anyone can teach it. What do you mean, I said? He says, anyone can teach it. It's just being aware, right? And I shook my head and I said, unfortunately, that's what the people have gotten the wrong idea of, because that's what has been promoted in society. Every person, as they say, Tom, Dick, and Harry, can sit down and think that they know. They write books on mindfulness. Come on. So what that does is it kind of, in their mind, levels the field, so you do not have to have a specialty. It took me years, thousands of clinical hours to get to a position where I could serve the community as a therapist. Similarly for him. So nobody came in and cut us some slack over there. Shortcuts to cut corners for us to get those licenses, state licenses, the degrees, this and that, or the clinical hours we had to do. Nobody came in. You can't do that. You have to fulfill those requirements. So when it comes to fulfilling the requirement of practice, which working closely with a teacher, upon whom one has to be dependent, not the other dependencies that we have. For example, I'm this kind of a person. Oh, I don't like to be in a position where I have to do some, what other people are telling me. Well, why should I keep the 5 precepts? Or why should I be, limited in what I can and cannot do? There's that crowd. Remember the narcissistic, teenage-like thinking? I've met quite a number of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50, 60, 70-year-old individuals who think like that, still. Because for them, everything else, every other discipline, like, plumbing I mentioned, the chef, you go and pay a lot of money to sit down in a restaurant to eat the food that somebody else prepared. Why? Because it's a Michelin star or something. Well, nobody's going to argue that. It's supposed to be good. It is good, in fact. We just go, pay money, and eat their food. No questions asked. You go to a physician, you go to a person who fixes your phone or computer. You're not going to sit down and argue, because the outcome is they will fix your phone. You have to trust them. And you're trusting their reviews and all that. But you leave yourself and your ego outside. So everyone is okay with that. Everyone is perfectly fine with that arrangement. It's almost like an unspoken rule. However, when it comes to the practice, which is the most important practice, not your degrees, not your licenses, not how much money you make ultimately, because everything else is going to be forgotten. How you develop internally, grow mentally, emotionally, how rich you become, wealthy become in your heart, in your understanding of emotions, cultivation of your mind, and how well you can control your, shall we say, instincts, anger when it arises. Do you experience serenity? Is there a depth developing in you? That's what I mean by personality change. Those are all the results of deepening your spiritual practice. So, when it isn't there, something else is occupying its space. It's not giving in. It's not moving aside. And that is the other dependencies, the other things, in the wrong direction. So this is why people fall out. And they want to do their thing. They want to go and do their retreats on their own. Why? Because, well, I'm sorry, but I don't like to relinquish my authority over me. Well, you're relinquishing your authority when the plumber comes to fix the house. You're relinquishing your authority when the roofer comes. You're not going to go and stand on their shoulder and say, well, are you putting the nail in the right direction? They're going to kick you out of the edge of the rooftop. Get out of here. This is my work. Don't interfere. When I was a teenager, I was apprenticing as a goldsmith. I wasn't a goldsmith then. I was just apprenticing. In those days, they had that. They called them journeyman or apprentice, where you had to pay money and to learn a trade. My dad took me to this goldsmith, and so he was teaching me how to learn how to work with gold. And it came a point where I had to solder, like I had to melt a piece of gold and attach pieces of gold, whether it was this or that jewelry piece. And then somebody he came and stood over my shoulder. And he said, well, I actually couldn't do it. And I said, I'm sorry, you're standing over my shoulder. I can't do it. And he said, I'm sorry, you have to do it. That's the image I just got from somebody working at the rooftop, and you go over there and say, no. Or imagine you stand next to the surgeon and you say, are you doing it right? Or a chef. There are chefs that horrific. There's that some years ago, I remember, Gordon Ramsay or somebody, right? That's his name. And he would yell and curse and throw people out of his kitchen. Imagine you go and stand next to him as he's preparing your food, cursing and swearing and all that, yelling and screaming, and you go and say, excuse me, are you preparing the food right? He will throw you out of the whole restaurant. So, unfortunately, this is one's own life. This is your own life that we're talking about. We can't be grotesque about it. We can't be so whimsical when it's every single day that's passing and you're not taking charge of it. And that is how you take charge, by the way, of your life. Not by, as I said, stomping your feet and saying, this is how the spiritual practice should be. So you can't have caveats. You can't have certain things that the teacher, if you find one, again, that's a big if. And that's one of the reasons why while I was in Asia, in Malaysia specifically, and I was invited to speak, I said to this group of people, I said, if Lord Buddha was present today, he would be thrown out from most of the temples. People would not come to listen to him. Imagine the Buddha that everybody's wearing a picture, has a picture of, or wearing, or has his so-called statue in here and there in their altars, in the house, in the temples. That Buddha, the real historical Buddha, if he were here today, people would not go to listen. He would not be popular. People don't consider this fact. Because what you had were a lot of people who were humble at the time, who said, I don't know everything. My quest, as it were, has run its course, and I can't do it on my own. Let me go. That's what Sariputta and Moggallana did, as Upatissa and Kolita. And the hundreds of thousands, if not more, beings who came to the Buddha to listen, you relinquish your pride. You don't attach to your titles, you don't attach to your possessions, you don't attach yourself to your car, the color of your car, the brand of your car, the way you wear your clothes, your hair, your habitual patterns. You don't seek out dependency in those trivial, foolish things as before. When the teacher says, don't do that, why are you associating with those people? Why are you going over there? If you want this, then that can't be. It's not the teacher's way, by the way. But the mind could translate it like that. Oh, the teacher is, he or she is putting me in this subjugated position, or it's a very stifling position. I feel like I don't have any authority. It's not like that. There were some characters like Malunkyaputta in the Buddha's life, or Udayi, Sakul Udayi, and other characters at one point or another who turned Buddha into that image in their mind. They lied about the teacher as well to their friends and family to justify their own stupidities, because they were not growing. Devadatta, what was Devadatta all about? He wanted to keep his pride. He did not relinquish his pride. There was no humility. So the Buddha was only serving a purpose. There was no development in him. And so long as the principles and the teachings that the Buddha gave matched his ego, matched his desires, and it did not in any way shake up or even remotely threaten his unwholesome habits, then the Buddha was okay. But the moment it did, then there was a problem with the Buddha. He was not the best teacher. He was not the teacher for him. In fact, I am a teacher then, Devadatta says. I have to go and replace the Buddha. Malunkyaputta went and said, unless you do this, unless you show me miraculous feats, unless you're able to, do these things that I heard that you can do, then I'm going to leave. I mean, I am here, I shaved my head and gave up my family, my possessions, this and that. What am I seeing? I'm not seeing anything from you. So basically, he thought that the Buddha was a performer for him, entertainer. And the Buddha said, did I ever promise you, come and become a monk so that I can actually perform for you these miracles that you're talking about? And he had a moment to think about it. He said, no, this is exactly. You and your foolish ideas. So people have their foolish ideas when they approach the Dhamma. Why? Because they're juvenile. Even if you're 40, 50, 60, 80 years old. It's a specialization. You need to lower your head. What that means is you need to put away your pride. There's a term called nisaya in this Dhamma and discipline, which is dependency. Every bhikkhu, anyone actually, a monastic who needs to go and train, they don't just waltz in there as, I got this. No, you have to learn, just like the apprentice. The young apprentice who's learning goldsmithing and things, or you go into medicine, you need to do the practicum at least. You need to learn how to, um, the intellectual, academic stuff, the theories, concepts you might even get perfect score on. But you need to start applying. But no one's going to give you throw you in the position of a doctor and say, okay, go ahead, you're good now. But that's what people want. Because they think they're solid, they're okay, they got this. While they stay in the sewage of suffering, their suffering. That's why time is running out. Time is running out. In this day and age, everybody thinks that, all they have to do is feel, that self-confidence, and that's enough. I got this. Well, it's not going to work. Like those people who would watch YouTube videos and all of a sudden feel like they can lose the weight on their own, this and that, when they've tried everything out there, every diet, this, that. And they go and find a trainer. And the trainer says, this is the method. This is what I need you to do. This is how I need you to eat, where to go, what to do, this and that. So what 99% of the people will do, however, they're going to fall out of that pattern that's being established for them, because they're going to come up with different excuses and not to follow through. Why? Because the complacency, the laziness is what they're familiar with. The lack in discipline in this. So the person, that's what happens every January, every December. People go and register, take classes and, get memberships at a gym. And everyone falls out pretty much. Over 60, 70, 80, 90%, if not more, fall out within the second month. So the teacher is the specialist. But the specialist is nothing if you are not allowing them to be the specialist in this. That's why you chose. That's why both of you chose each other. The teacher says, okay, are you willing to do the work? Yes, okay. Do you know what it entails? Yes, okay. I have certain expectations of you. The roofer says, I have certain expectations from you. I need you to pay me this much for this time, this amount of time that I put in for these materials, and we'll finish it by then. And the other requirement, you stay away from my work. You go and do your thing, I'll do my thing. You can't breathe down my neck. You have to trust me that I'm doing my job. You don't go and walk into a kitchen while the chef is preparing your meal and dictate how much of this, how much of that ingredient he need to puts inside the food. That's a specialty. So when a teacher says, I need you to maintain sila, I need you to stay away from certain crowds, certain activities, certain places that you want to still go to, hang out, and activities you want to engage in, and other activities that you need to do but you're not, then there's a discrepancy. There's a short circuit somewhere. And unfortunately, teachers have also been responsible in this corruption over time. When a person says, oh, I can teach mindfulness, anybody could teach mindfulness, that already says teachers have not been properly instructing. It's not a weekend thing. It's not a book thing that you can learn and all of a sudden, or certification, you're good to go. It doesn't work like that. It has to involve all three aspects of a person's development. Their moral, virtuous development has to be there first. You can't live an immoral, unethical life and expect yourself to be practicing mindfulness, let alone proper meditation. It doesn't work like that. So the teachers have to make that clear by simply being generous at a temple, at this association, at that center, supporting teachers and monks, let's say. It does not make it, does not get it right. There's certain responsibilities one has to do, because dana is the very first step, the generosity. Where's the others? Where's sila? Where's samadhi? Where's panya? They're not there yet. So the person has to then engage, not when I say then, like sequentially later on. No, at the same time. The person has to be living a virtuous life, as well as protecting one's mind from one's own proclivities, as I mentioned, instincts, meaning somebody makes you angry. How do you respond? Does your self-control leave the building when you meet that person, when that person says something? Well, there goes the education you were supposed to be receiving. So this is where humility comes in, and you don't trust your, in a sense, impulses anymore as you used to. Why? Because now you have a specialist in your life. You have to trust the roofer, the plumber. I'm using these examples because unfortunately people respond better to these professions. Even though being a teacher in this Dhamma and discipline is not a profession, people have turned it into that, unfortunately. Spiritual pride is the big problem here. And lying to ourselves. You have a culture where, that's why if the Buddha were, let's say, to be here today, people would not want to listen to him. Because he would be talking about Sila, Samadhi, Panya. We know that. He's the one who taught us this. He's the one who teaches us all of this. And you have to get yourself out. When I say that, you have to get your own interpretations of the Dhamma and how it's supposed to be out, so that the teacher can do their job. You have to get yourself out of the kitchen and go and sit at your table where you're supposed to. The trust part. The analogies fall apart after some time, the metaphors, because of course it's a joint effort, as I said, right? But when the teacher is saying something, Devadatta had to trust the teacher. When the teacher says, Devadatta, you're crossing the line. Malukyaputta, you're crossing the line. Go and sit and meditate. That's you going back to your table and sitting there and following the instructions of the teacher. Instead of every 5 seconds opening your eyes saying, well, I used to do it this way. I think it's better. Soon enough, you're going to say, you know what, I don't think I need the teacher. Many people left the Buddha. And that just shows they were not ready. So unfortunately, the way it's packaging it for oneself is the pride itself can convince you that you are ready to take care of this by yourself, but in essence, you are not ready for this, or in fact, you will never be ready, because you are ready for yourself, to take care of yourself, to, pull yourself up from your shoestrings and really do the work on your own. If that were true, you would have already been at the place where you wanted when you first approached a teacher. You weren't there. So the fighting with the teacher has to stop. And it will stop only when you put away your pride, when you develop humility, when you really do the work. When you don't do the work, all the excuses in the universe will show up. And usually they will turn into a focus upon the teacher, and the teacher is the problem. Many people left the Buddha, as I said. Imagine, the Buddha became the problem for these individuals. They saw him as the problem, and they left. So that's what we have today. Things haven't changed much in that sense.
Let us now listen to a Buddhist song titled Twig and the Tree by Wayfarers.
Gently teach the little children how to walk the Buddha's way. Show with kindness and affection what to do and what to say. Even as a tiny twig, if twisted, grows into a twisted tree. So do man and woman follow patterns learned from infancy. Let us then make sure that always example right we clearly show. So that of use life may never down the path of evil go. Teach the young the path to follow. Show them in their days of youth. And when old and never waver from Lord Buddha's path of truth. Gently teach the little children how to walk the Buddha's way. Show with kindness and affection what to do and what to say. Even as a tiny twig, if twisted, grows into a twisted tree. So do man and woman follow patterns learned from infancy. Let us then make sure that always example right we clearly show. So that of use life may never down the path of evil go. Teach the young the path to follow. Show them in their days of youth. And when old and never waver from Lord Buddha's path of truth. From Lord Buddha's path of truth.
Now it is time for the weekly Dhammapada sermon, a collection of sayings of the Buddha, which is one of the best known Buddhist scriptures and most widely read. The weekly Dhammapada will be presented by Venerable Professor Bhante Sivali. Let us welcome Bhante Sivali to present a brief sermon of the Dhammapada verse 95.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Welcome to the Bdtv Dhammapada program. Today we are going to discuss verse number 95. First of all, let me thank you for coming to listen to the Dhamma talk. Number 95. It's in Arahant Varga, chapter Arahant, that begins with Patavi Samo no Virujjati, Indeki Lopama Thadi Subbato, Rahaduva Apeta Kadenu Samsara Ne Bhavanti Thadino. Sansara na bhavanti thadino. Like earth is one who is well behaved. One who is well behaved is just like earth, secure and not resentful. As city post, as filth-free lake. No wanderings on for one who is thus. This literal meaning is that this happened while Buddha was residing in the Jetavana monastery in India. They spoke this verse with reference to the chief disciple of the Buddha. Chief disciple was Sariputta, and a young monk who just made unnecessary foolish comments about the chief disciple who was enlightened one, Arahant. But later, Buddha clarified to this young person, of course he was another monk, who Venerable Sariputta was. He was indeed an enlightened one. And he does not possess a kind of words that he used to describe Venerable Sariputta. They are the Buddha who was about to explain who the Arahants, enlightened ones. And there, Buddha explained the noble Arahants, like Venerable Sariputta, who himself is Arahants. These Arahants never lose their temper, whatsoever is done to them. They will never be disturbed. They never lose their temper. They are as firm and unshaken as the gate pillars that secure city gates. They are as lucid and tranquil as the ocean and the lakes devoid of mud. The great oceans, of course, they're tranquil. But you go deep into the sea, they're very tranquil. Those oceans are tranquil when you go deep into them. Not at the beach. There are always waves come and go, come and go. So they are as lucid and tranquil as the ocean and the lakes devoid of mud. That kind of noble person ceases to wander in the round of existence. Round of existence means samsara. We travel between birth and death. So arahants who are free from all defilements, has given up all attachments, and they do not have rebirth. Therefore, for them, so-called samsara does not exist, because this is going to be their last existence. And here they said about in the killer, that is a very strong, solid fortress, a tower, that will never be shaken by the wild wind or rains. So in the killer is either a column as firm and high as that of Suckers, the kings of the Devas, or the main tower that stands at the entrance of a fortress or city. Commentators state that these Indrakilas are firm posts which are erected either side or outside the city as an embellishment. Usually they are made of bricks or durable wood and are octagonal in shape. Half of a post is embedded in the earth, hence the metaphor as firm and steady as an Indrakila. Tadino is also the word used as the Tadi is one who has neither attachment, no desirable objects, no aversion to undesirable objects. These are the qualities of the Arahants. Nor does he cling to anything amidst the 8 world conditions. Labha or labha, that is gain and loss. Yasa, ayasa, fame and infame. And ninda, prasansa, blame and praise. Sukhancha, dukkhan, happiness and pain. And Arahant remains unperturbed, manifesting neither attachment nor aversion, neither elation nor depression. These are the words that we can understand how the Arahant enlightenments, how the Arahants and the enlightened ones their position. They are free from attachment, free from defilements. We can say these words, but until we feel, then it will not be possible for us to feel the position that the Arahants occupy. Therefore, it is something that lies in our hands to search, to investigate, to practice, and reach that level if we want to feel how these Arahants feel like. how we feel when we are free from attachment, lust, and all this greed and hatred. The mind, how it will look like me, how we will feel at that stage when we are free from all attachment and anger, hatred, all these defilements. Santam tassa manam hoti, peacefulness, mind, and peaceful santa vachacha kammacha, his speech and action too. Sammadanya vimuttasya, perfect in knowledge of freedom. Upasantasya tadino, one thus is of utmost peace. Can we imagine? Can we imagine the situation? A position, a person who occupies that position, how they feel, how we can feel that. If we have never been to somewhere, we can simply imagine how that city, the building, the person look like. If we have never seen human being with our own eyes, like a blind person, he can imagine. I even cannot see how his imagination of human beings, a picture of things. The same way we can't imagine the position that the Arahants occupies. The Arahants occupy. It's free from all lust, most peaceful, calm mind they have, because they are free from all this worldly attachment. This is what it is important to understand. Sorry. This, the Samma means harmonious. Samma anyaya vimuttasya. Upasantasya tadino. Tasya manam santam hoti vachacha santa kammacha. So, a noble Arahant who is freed by disknowing, is calm and unshaken by the impact of changing circumstances. His mind is at peace. His words are peaceful. His actions are peaceful. So, the commentator also talk about in little bit in details about the person. Santa, peaceful, the saintly, the Arhat, is truly peaceful. He is peaceful because he has reached total disknowing, of freedom from knowing, as he has attained that level of calm that is not perturbed. Since the mind is fountain of all activity, his words are calm. Since his mind and words are calm, his actions too are calm. Therefore, he is totally serene in personality. Like who? Arahants. This leads him to the status of total serenity. Upasant, tranquil within. This knowing means that one does not form opinions about circumstances based on past experience or present. When one remains unmoved and one is at peace. So this is the upasant, tranquil within. Tranquil, one does not form opinions about circumstances based on past experience or present. When one does not, one remains unmoved and one is at peace. How nice it would be. How nice if we can reach that level. It is in our hands. Buddha has said, I have taught you the path to reach the highest level, supreme enlightenment. It is up to you to tread the path. May I wish you the wisdom, courage, determination to enter into that level by following the noble teachings of the Buddha. May you all be well and happy.
Gently teach the little children how to walk the Buddha's way. Show with kindness and affection what to do and what to say. Even as a tiny twig, if twisted, grows into a twisted tree, so do man and woman follow patterns learned from infancy. Let us then make sure that always example right we clearly show, so that our views life may never down the path of evil go. Teach the young the path to follow. Show them in their days of youth, and when older never waver from Lord Buddha's path of truth. From Lord Buddha's path of truth.
That concludes today's program. If you have any questions about the contents of our broadcast, please feel free to reach out to us at info@bdtv.com. Our dedicated team remains committed to sharing the profound teachings of the Buddha, helping you walk the path of wisdom and enlightenment. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week. at the same time. Namo Buddhaya.